Now, Megyn Kelly, of course, our opportunity to talk to her from the United States. Well, something popped up that she had on her show in the US that I thought was worth replaying here, which is an old bit of tape of Donald Trump. You see, Donald Trump, 2018, looks the Germans in the eye and says, hey guys, you are overly reliant on Russian gas. Their reaction, well, Trump was right, and Megyn knows it.
They openly laughed at him. There's a shot of the German delegation just sitting there mocking him. They got such a kick out of what they perceived as his ignorance. He was 100% correct. And of course, we're living it right now. Germany made this commitment to go all renewables, all wind, all solar. They moved into the 21st century saying, we're going to save the environment. We will save the climate. And they didn't stop to think about exactly what the smartest way of doing that would be, because wind and solar aren't going to do it. They're not ready, and there are all sorts of drawbacks to it. And the other thing about wind and solar is they have to be 100% backed up, because as you know, they don't always work. It's tough to get the solar energy when it's, what's the word? Oh yeah, nighttime. So you need a backup.
One of many problems with going all in on wind and solar is that, you know, it needs backup technology, it needs firming technology because, you know, it is intermittent. And you had a great conversation with a bloke called Markle, who's a former Greenpeace guy, well known to our audience here as well. And he listed all of the problematic areas with this rush towards certain technologies. While it might be better for the atmosphere, it's terrible for the actual planet.
Yeah, exactly. We were so worried about the air, we forgot about the earth. So California, for example, has now just decided that it's going to ban gas-powered cars. It wants to go all electric, and they're not ready for this, not near ready. He says this is a joke, and so while they may have resolved to do it legislatively, they cannot do it as a practical matter. You know what happens at the end of the day when you have a battery-powered car? You have to plug it in. You got to plug it into something. They don't have the charging stations. He talked about how the batteries are made and how this is just going to make us all way more reliant on China because the lithium is largely made in China. The batteries are largely made in China. We can't do it over here.
Well, it's the empowering of China as well. I mean, don't forget, under the Paris Accord, they can keep polluting as much as they want, and it only counts at 2030, when the United States is allegedly going to cut its greenhouse gases by 50%. Australia's going to go 43%. We will be reliant on buying technology from essentially an adversary, we used to call them enemies, but an adversarial country that will only get more powerful and more dirty and more polluting.
So not only is China absolutely not obeying by these same cleanup standards, but they just created this new train that carries their coal from A to B. They're openly in love with coal. And Germany, let's save the planet, 21st century Germany. Guess what they're going to have to do now? They're going to have to use coal.
Now, I am fascinated by what we are seeing in real time here. Biden, left to his own devices, falls up the stairs and is flailing. So much so that open speculation of should he run, will he run? But then the media has now decided to come in and deliver air support for Joe Biden. Apparently, moving above inflation, above everything else, are threats to democracy as the #1 issue.
Well, I think the biggest thing that's happening now is something I mentioned last week, which is Trump is back in the news. And the media loves that because Trump translates into ratings. Trump last night said he wants to be declared the president because he found out that the FBI was telling social media sites not to run the Hunter Biden story or something to that effect. And as we all know, that's not exactly how it works over here. You can't just who would do that? So we just get out our little, ink pad and we declare void on Joe Biden's head? No, that's not going to happen. And the problem with the Republicans over here, Paul, is they're so dumb. They're so dumb. Just freaking stop taking the bait. Stop talking about him all the time.
Now, look, Meghan freaking Markle. Now, I agree with everything that everyone says, but I can't help but think that, strangely, she is winning. We talk about her all the time. Don't we add to her infamy?
100%. But it's important to do because we have daughters and we have other people out there who could be influenced by this moron. So it's important to call her out on her absurd behavior. In her latest interviews, she claimed that the press corps has been calling her children the N-word. Really? Who? When? Which press corps? What reporter? Show me. Let's find out how. Explain. I don't believe her. I'm telling you, you want to go look at the comment section on your social media, on my social media, I'm sure we've got equally vile things said about us. But unlike Meghan Markle, we don't choose to elevate it as representative of our entire experience with the media like she does. Why does she do that? Because she enjoys being the victim and trying to make herself into this sort of oppressed person. The flip of that is her comparing herself to Nelson Mandela, Paul. She compared herself to Nelson Mandela. She told a story allegedly about how somebody in the Lion King cast pulled her aside and said, when you got married to Harry, it was the same as when Nelson Mandela was released from prison. Even Nelson Mandela's family members are now coming out saying, this is a bridge too far. It's like one of those caricatures in the British TV shows, like, I would never say it about myself, but my friends say I'm awfully like Nelson Mandela, right? Like, why would she tell that story? Can you imagine, giving an interview and me being like, I wouldn't compare myself to Grace Kelly, but everyone says I look and act just like. I would never. Who does she think she's kidding?
I love Megyn Kelly, and I know you do too. The only place you'll see her on Aussie telly is right here on Port Murray.